Welcome to video 26 in our VBA tutorial series. In this video, we're going to delve into a very exciting topic: how to automate Google searches with VBA in Excel using both Internet Explorer and Google Chrome. By the end of this tutorial, you'll have a good understanding of the basics of web automation using VBA. We'll guide you through performing Google searches automatically using terms from an Excel sheet, adapting the code to work with Internet Explorer and Google Chrome, executing multiple searches at once, and even conducting Google searches through an interactive input box. So without further ado, let's get started. Now that we're on Sheet 2, you'll notice that we have the word dog in cell A1. This is going to be our search term for the first example. Let's move over to the VBA editor, where we have our first code example in Module 1. Before we dive into the code, it's important to note that you'll need to enable a specific reference to make this work. Go to Tools in the VBA editor, then click on References, and make sure to check the box next to Microsoft Internet Controls. This will allow us to control Internet Explorer through VBA. Once that's done, we can proceed with understanding the code. Great, now that the reference is set up, let's look at our first code example. This code uses Internet Explorer to automate a Google search based on a term we have in cell A1 of Sheet 2, which in this case is the word dog. What we'll do is we'll initiate an instance of Internet Explorer, make it visible, and navigate to a Google search URL that includes the search term from our Excel cell. This way, we automate what would typically be a manual process of opening a browser and typing a search query. So, let's walk through the code line by line to understand how it accomplishes this task. Let's look at the first line, dim IE as object. Here we're declaring a variable named IE as an object. This variable will act as our interface to control the Internet Explorer window. Next, we create an Internet Explorer.application object and assign it to the IE variable. From there, we gain control over an Internet Explorer browser window directly from Excel. This concept is known as web automation. Then we make the browser visible. Using the line IE.visible equals true, it means we want to see the actions happening in real time. Next, the navigate method is used to open a specific URL in our browser. The structure of the Google search URL is consistent, so all we have to do is append our search term, which we've taken directly from our Excel sheet using the cell A1 reference. With this setup, every time the code runs, it will search for whatever term is present in that specific cell. Now that we've gone through the code, let's see it in action. I'm going to run the code, and you should see Internet Explorer open and automatically perform a Google search for the term that's currently in cell A1 of our Excel sheet, which is dog. Pay attention to the browser window that pops up. As you can see, the code has successfully opened Internet Explorer and performed a Google search for dog, exactly as we expected. This confirms that our VBA code is functioning as intended. Now that we've successfully automated Google search using Internet Explorer, let's move on to our second module. Here, we'll do something similar, but this time we'll be using Google Chrome as our web browser. If you prefer using Chrome, this segment will be particularly interesting for you. Our code starts off by declaring two string variables, Chrome path and search term. Chrome path will be used to store the path where Google Chrome is installed on your computer, while search term will hold the value we want to search for on Google. Next line of code specifies the file path for Google Chrome using the string variable Chrome path. Make sure that you locate and input the correct path where Google Chrome is installed on your computer. This is crucial for the script to function correctly. The next line is quite similar to what we did in the Internet Explorer example. We are retrieving the search term from cell A1 of Sheet 2, storing it in the search term variable. The call shell function then opens a new Chrome window and navigates to the Google search URL with the search term we've just grabbed from the Excel sheet. This line is the core of the script. The shell function is a VBA function that runs a program via the command line. We provide two parameters to this function. The first one is the concatenated string that forms the complete command to run Google Chrome and navigate it to the desired search URL. Here, Chrome path contains the path to the Chrome application on your computer, and search term is the query we want to search for. These two are combined with additional command line options to create a complete command. The second parameter, VB normal focus, sets the window state to normal and gives it focus. This means the Google Chrome window will appear in a standard window size, and it will be the active window on your screen. So in essence, this line is doing a lot of heavy lifting by taking the search term from Excel, passing it to Google Chrome, and executing the search, all through a single command. So, by running this code, you will automatically open a Google search for the term stored in Sheet 2 cell A1, this time using Google Chrome instead of Internet Explorer. Alright, now that we've seen how to automate Google searches using both Internet Explorer and Google Chrome, let's take it a step further. Our next example is in Module 3, and it demonstrates how to perform multiple Google searches in a single run, each for a different search term. The first line of code is similar to what we've seen before. dim.ie as object. This line declares an object variable to hold the Internet Explorer instance. However, you'll notice that we have introduced a loop this time, represented by for a equals 1 to 3. This loop iterates through the first 3 cells in column A of Sheet 3, fetching the search term from each cell and executing a Google search. Inside this loop, we also added an application.wait function to pause the execution of our code for 3 seconds. This brief pause allows the browser sufficient time to load the search results page before the code proceeds to the next iteration of the loop. Alright, let's execute this code to see it in action. As you'll notice, an Internet Explorer window will pop up and begin searching for each term found in our specified Excel cells, one after the other. The 3-second pause we incorporated ensures that each search has enough time to be loaded and displayed, allowing us to observe the results clearly. This example beautifully illustrates the potential of automating repetitive tasks with VBA, especially when dealing with multiple data points. Before we move on to the next example, I'd like to point out an important aspect of our code. In the current setup, a new Internet Explorer window is opened for each search term. If you'd like to perform all the searches within the same browser window, you'll need to move this line of code outside of the loop. This way, you initialize the Internet Explorer object just once, and the same instance will be used for all subsequent searches. This is just a quick tip for those of you who prefer that approach. Now that we've seen how to perform multiple automated searches with Internet Explorer, let's move on to our next example, where we'll explore how to perform Google searches in Chrome, but this time using an input box for a more interactive experience. In this code, you'll notice that the first thing we do is declare 2 variables, Chrome path as a string to store the location of the Google Chrome executable file, and query as a string to store the search term. The interesting part of this code is the input box function. The input box pops up a dialog box where you can manually enter your search term. Whatever you type in this box gets stored in the query variable, which then becomes the search term for Google. We use the shell function just like we did earlier to open Google Chrome. However, this time the search term is dynamic, meaning it's whatever you entered in the input box. So with this setup, you have the flexibility to search for anything you like without having to modify the Excel sheet or the VBA code. Okay, now let's go ahead and run this final piece of code. You'll see the input box pop up, asking you to enter your search term. After you type in what you're interested in and hit OK, Google Chrome should launch and take you directly to the search results for the term you entered. This demonstrates the power of integrating VBA with web browsers for interactive and dynamic tasks. And there you have it. You've just learned multiple methods to automate Google searches using both Internet Explorer and Google Chrome directly from your Excel sheet. You've also seen how to perform multiple searches using data from Excel cells and how to initiate a search using an interactive input box. So whether you're looking to automate a series of searches or just make your Excel workflow a bit more interactive, these examples should give you a good starting point. Thank you for joining me in this tutorial, and I hope you found it useful. Feel free to leave your comments and questions, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial.